transform a sentence from simple to compound, from compound to simple, or from complex to simple or complex to compound. All these transformations are relatively easy, then you find it. A lot of students complain that they feel difficulty while transforming the sentences. So today's video is dedicated for the conversion of sentences from simple to compound, or compound to simple, or simple to complex, complex to simple, or compound to complex, or vice versa. How do we do that? There are various ways to do it, but before beginning the transformation, we need to be clear about the concept of phrases and clauses. If you are clear about the phrases and clauses, then only you will be able to change a sentence from simple to compound or to any particular category. So let's first understand what is the difference between a phrase and a clause. If you observe a phrase and a clause, both of these two things are basically groups of words. What is a phrase? If you see a phrase, it is a group of words. Let's see, for example, she called me to join them. Now, if you see this sentence, in this sentence you will find that from here to here, this seems like almost a complete sentence with a subject and a verb, right? She called me. So here this is a clause, and this part, if you see, does this part have a subject? No. Does this part have a verb? No. This doesn't have a subject, neither a verb. So basically a phrase must have a subject and verb combination, which I have already discussed with you in my previous videos as well. And when you talk about a clause must have a subject verb combination. This is a clause. A phrase must not have the combination of subject and verb. So here if you see, to join them, this part does not have a subject verb combination. So basically what happens now, when you change a sentence from simple to complex, so you need to change simple to complex or simple to compound. So you need to understand the basic difference between these two types of sentences. Let's see what that difference is. So here if you see, a simple sentence will have only one clause. If you see simple sentence will have only one clause. If you see a compound sentence will have more than one clause, right? More than one clause. And if you see a complex, like compound or complex, both of them have more than one clause. So if you understood this concept, you are going to know what you need to do while converting them from one category to another. If you want to change a sentence from simple to compound, then a simple sentence will have only one clause. That means you will need to change another phrase or another word into a compound, into another clause. Whichever phrase you will have, that you will need to change into a clause, so that it has at least two of the groups of words which are clauses. Let's understand it with example. See, she was happy to meet you. If you see this sentence, how many clauses does this sentence have? If you observe it carefully, you will see that it has only one clause, which is from here to here. Why? Because this is subject, she, and the verb, the finite verb is was, and this is the object, right? She was happy. Now after this, if you see this part is a phrase. This is beginning with a preposition, right? And rest, if you see, yes, it seems to have a verb, but it is a non-finite verb, to meet. If you see, it is a non-finite verb, so this part of the sentence is not a clause. So basically it is a kind of simple sentence. Why? Because it has only one clause. A simple sentence has only one clause, but now if you want to change it into, this is simple, if you want to change it into a complex sentence, how can you change it? So this phrase, this is right now a phrase, you need to change it into a clause. If you change this phrase into a clause, this will become with two different clauses. Any complex sentence must have more than one clause, but right now it is simple, so it has only one clause. So that is your primary goal. What you need to keep in your mind, that you should leave the clause as it is, right? One clause you already have, so let that be there. The other phrase which you have, try to change it into a clause. In that way you will have two clauses. That means that sentence will not remain a simple sentence anymore. Now let's try doing this. So how can you do it? If you see this phrase, to meet you, I can change it in this manner. I can use a subordinating conjunction. Why? Because you need to make it to complex. You remember, in compound sentences we have coordinating conjunctions. What type of conjunctions do we have? Coordinating conjunctions. So for compound, whenever you want to change from simple to compound, then you need to add a coordinating conjunction. But when you want to change from simple to complex, then you need to add a subordinating conjunctions. So here this you need to change to complex, so you have to think something with a subordinating conjunction. What can that be? She was happy to meet you. So you can take a conjunction before or after. Think, was she happy before meeting you? No, she was happy after meeting you, right? So that will be an appropriate clause which you can add to this. Instead of this phrase, let's see, you can write this way. She was happy. So you see, I did not at all change this clause. This I have left as it is because this was already a clause, so I will let it be a clause. I just need to increase the number of clauses to change it into complex. So I have left this as it is. Now this was a phrase, just change it into a clause. How? Now I have already found the conjunction that I need to use, which is after. So I will use after, and then I can write she met you. Now if you observe this sentence, this has one clause here and one clause here. This is a completely independent clause, which you can see does not have any conjunction, but this clause, if you see, is beginning with a subordinating conjunction. So this is a subordinate clause which you call a dependent clause. So this is a dependent clause, this is an independent clause, means this became a complex sentence now. So the conversion is complete. This is a complex sentence. Similarly, if you want to change a sentence into compound, what you will need to do is you have to add a coordinating conjunction. Like here you see subordinating conjunction I have added. No, I have already taught you previously. If you have not watched that video, you can watch the video from me which is about types of conjunction. I have explained you coordinating conjunctions and subordinating conjunctions. So coordinating conjunctions are the conjunctions which are coming in fanboys. Fanboys, you remember? Fanboys. So F stands for, A stands for and, N stands for nor, B stands for but, O stands for or, Y stands for yet, and S stands for so. So all these 7 conjunctions are called coordinating conjunctions, which you will need to use while changing into a compound sentence. But when you are changing it into a complex sentence, then you will need to use a conjunctions apart from this. That should not be any type of coordinating conjunction. Let's take some examples and understand it well. Okay? So I will just erase it. It's pretty difficult for me to erase these days. Okay. So meanwhile, I would just request you to subscribe our channel if you have not subscribed. And now we are going on that. One second. The ink is pretty dried up. Okay, now let's go on. So we were going to take some examples of changing a sentence into compound. Let's take a sentence. My father gifted me a book, but I didn't like it. I'm just taking random examples. So if you see this sentence, it is a compound sentence. How will you change a sentence from compound to simple? Let's see this. If you see, it has got 2 clauses. My father gifted me a book. It is 1 clause. And there is a coordinating conjunction but. And then you can see I didn't like it. This is another clause which is a kind of independent clause again. So 2 of the independent clauses are there which makes it a compound sentence. If you want to change it to a simple sentence, this is a compound sentence. If you want to change it to a simple sentence, what you need to do is you need to remove this conjunction and you need to change one of the clauses into a phrase. Right? There you can see 2 clauses are there, and to qualify the sentence as a simple sentence, there should only be 1 clause. 2 clauses should not be there. If there are 2 clauses, then that will remain a compound sentence. So which of the clauses do you want to remove? Let's see. First decide that. So you can remove the first clause, change the first clause into a phrase. If you change the first clause, this clause, my father gifted me a book, if you change this clause into a phrase, this sentence will have only 1 clause and it will become a simple sentence. So how can you do that? My father gifted me a book. You can write it this way. Despite having received a book from my father, I did not like it. The second clause is I didn't like it. So I will let that be as it is. Didn't like it. Now observe this. I didn't like it. I have not changed it. The second clause, there was no need to change. Why? Because I already told you earlier that we need to just change one clause into a phrase. भाई एक क्लॉज को फ्रेज में बदल देंगे, एक क्लॉज को वैसे ही रहने देंगे, क्योंकि एक क्लॉज तो हमें चाहिए सेंटेंस बनने के लिए. इन एवरी सेंटेंस यू मस्ट हैव वन क्लॉज एटलीस्ट, तभी तो वो सेंटेंस बनेगा. सो हियर इफ यू सी दिस क्लॉज आई हैव नॉट चेंज्ड एनी हाउ. I didn't like it, this is same as it is, I didn't like it. पर जो पहला क्लॉज था माई फादर गिफ्टेड मी अ बुक, अब उसको देखो थोड़ा बड़ा जरूर लग रहा है, बट इफ यू ऑब्जर्व इट नो इट इज अ फ्रेज. नाउ यही बात मैंने कही है यहाँ पे, बट फ्रेज बना के कही है. डिस्पाइट हैविंग रिसीव्ड अ बुक फ्रॉम माई फादर गिफ्टेड मी अ बुक. अब यहाँ देखो दिस इज नॉट अ क्लॉज. If you are confused that this seems like a clause, no, it is big, but it is not a clause. You have to understand the basic difference of a phrase and a clause. The basic difference is that a clause must have subject and verb combination. But here if you observe, this is a group of words. If you see there is a verb, right? Received, no, having received, but this is perfect participle. Having received is perfect participle, which is a type of non-finite verb. You remember I told you a clause must have a finite verb, but this is not a finite verb, this is a non-finite verb. That means it cannot become a clause, it is a phrase. Now apart from this, do you see any verb here? The answer is no. You don't see any verb except having received. A book from my father, these are not verbs. None of these words are verb. Despite, no, this is also not a verb. So there is no finite verb in this group of words. Very clear that it is not a clause. And if it is not a clause, then it is a phrase, right? So this sentence is now a simple sentence. It is a simple sentence. So that is what you have to keep in mind. Whenever you see a compound sentence or a complex sentence, you need to change one of the clauses into a phrase. Now for that you can use a non-finite verb, you can use different types of prepositions like besides, despite, etc. like these. Right? Thinking all the possible options, you have to make your mind in that way that you have to just change the clause into a phrase, but don't change the meaning of that. If you observe this one and this one, is there difference in the sense? No. My father gifted me a book. मेरे पापा ने मुझे एक बुक गिफ्ट किया. Despite having received a book from my father, मेरे पापा से एक बुक रिसीव करने के बावजूद मुझे ये पसंद नहीं आया. I didn't like it, so I didn't like it. That remains same. So sense should be same. Sense should not change. This happens also with complex sentence. There is not much difference because only here in complex sentence you will find that is a subordinating conjunction. Complex sentence में क्या होगा, यहाँ जैसे ये but है ना, so but की जगह कोई subordinating conjunction होगा like before, after, when, while. These all conjunctions are subordinating conjunctions. No, so there can be such subordinating conjunctions, but उसको भी आपको बदलना इसी तरह से है. You have to just make sure, don't change the sense, and then try converting that clause into a phrase. So I hope you understood how to change it. From changing from simple to complex or compound, from simple to complex or compound, when you are changing, then you have to remember that you have to change a phrase. Here what will you need to do? That in simple there will be a phrase which you will need to change into a clause. Now when you are changing from complex or compound to simple, then there will be a clause which you will need to change as phrase. I hope you have understood the concept. Now if you have doubts related to it, I will bring another video in more detail for you, so you can be clear on this concept. Thank you for watching and joining. Have a great day to you. Enjoy.